Centre?
Full name is Gillian Lynch and I am the Paid Centre Coordinator.
My name is Maggie and I am one of the Director Trustees, but what I am also is a volunteer coordinator, and it's a post that I really enjoy doing. Not for the title really, but because I love meeting people. I think it gives me the opportunity to get to know the volunteers firsthand. So that's what I do.
My name's Savita and I came here 5 months ago. I just moved into the area, well, a year ago now, and a friend told me about the Hillingdon Women's Centre. I was going through a few problems in my life. I needed some sort of support, but also something to get me out of the house and things like that. So a friend told me to volunteer here. A lot of people feel scared and need somewhere to go. And this is the only women's centre in Hillingdon actually, so especially this centre running is so important to everyone. The amount of fun.
And I'd like to be involved in the women's centre because I've had a lot of help from them myself.
So when did you find out about the centre?
It must have been about 10 or 11 years now. When I was involved in a domestic violence relationship, I needed a bit of help and support, and I'd been given the number of the women's centre because I've been told that people there would be able to help me. So I got in touch with them, and from that I went on a confidence course. I did an MVQ, which was a level 2 in yachting and communication skills, which gave me a lot of confidence. I started to trust people a bit more. From the MVQ I went on to do a Ready Steady Start course as well with British Airways, which was to do with someone that I met from the course. And ever since then my confidence has thrived so much that I'm so happy that if I didn't have the Women's Centre, then I don't know what would have happened.
Terrible neighbour harassment problems, so I need access to leave. Well, she just sort of sign-pointed me really.
Just a little bit more detail, how did they help? So obviously that they signposted you to
just carry on with the battle that went on for a very long time. It's awful.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how did you then become a volunteer?
Well, I used to be responsible for the information, and I knew Shirley Simpson, one of the coordinators that was here, and I sort of stuck around really, I mean, there was, when this neighbour problem was, I had to access mental health services as well, so knowing it's a safe space here, and then of course I'm one of these, I can't sit and do that.
There's one story that actually stays with me, and I suppose it will stay with me for a long time, because I suppose, I'm a bit naive, I think everybody's lovely, but at one time a young lady came in to us, and I was the person that answered the door to her, and she was actually wrapped in a sheet. And of course when you hear the story as to what happened, and she decided to divulge what happened, it's because her husband, after beating her up, she decided to leave. But this had been going on for years, and I think when she came into us, she had 2 little children with her. They were twins, and they were about a year old. And he said to her, she said, "I'm leaving now, I'm leaving you." And of course there was a battle. She said while she was dressing the children, he was beating up on her. And as she was leaving the door, he said to her, "You better take off anything that I've bought you." And of course he was the one that was holding the money. He was the one that was buying her clothes, buying the food. He was so controlling that she didn't have money at all. She didn't even have the children benefits book, He had it, was in his name. And she took everything off that she thought he had bought. But she said when she was leaving, he said, "I bought you the panty and the bra, take it off." And she took it off and went to the neighbour next door, who she was told not to speak to all the years that she'd been there. She hadn't spoken to the woman. But when she felt that she was in need, she went to this person's house, and again, it was a white woman that she had to go to. And the woman gave her a sheet that she wrapped herself into and dropped her hair for us, and I met her. And when she told me the story, I was in tears, because I couldn't understand how anyone could be so harsh, really. You've beaten her, you've done everything, you've taken her dignity away, but she has to come to a place of strangers, but still she felt safe enough to come to us, And that is the one story that would really stick in my mind,
Yeah.
you know. I suppose to make me, or I mean, I'm a mother with children, that I would always say to my children, as we say back home, always keep something for yourself. Even if it's 5p or whatever it is, always keep something for yourself, because when someone has to throw you out with nothing, it means that you've lost everything.
Yeah, it's a
Dignity
terrible
is a
story.
lot, you know. So that will always stay with me. Everything else is, you know, will probably go to the back of my mind, but that particular story always stays with me.
I think it will stay with everybody who hears that
Yeah,
story.
it was really very, very sad. But she's come back to us. She came back 3 times, and she's doing so much better. The children are
Excellent.
flourishing, but she just came back to say thank you. And whenever she's passing, she pops in.
Good.
Yeah, so she's doing well. That's another thing. Makes you feel good when
Yeah.
you know you come back and you find out that they have actually been empowered
Mhm.
to do things. Yeah. So that's what we're about, really, empowering people and letting them back out into this wide world.
Introduced to you.
My name is John MacDonald. I'm the Member of Parliament for Hayes and Hillingdon,
Okay.
which includes West Drayton, so all the south of the borough. I was the GLC councillor for the area,
Okay.
so on the foundation of this centre, I was involved in founding the centre.
Excellent. Thank you.
And originally grant aided, I was the GLC grants chair and finance chair. So I grant aided the original women's group to set up the centre and buy the building
Thank you.
20 odd years ago.
Excellent. Greatly appreciated. Could you tell me what you think the centre is about?
When it was originally established, a group of women came together who had a whole range of issues that they needed to address, and it ranged from individual issues around domestic violence within families. It ranged around people who were living in appalling housing conditions and in poverty as a result of lack of benefits, lack of access to benefits, lack of employment, skills, training. And in addition to that, there was a whole range of communal issues where we were bringing people together to campaign, for example, security and safety of women on the streets in this area. Those women came together, but they were a group campaigning, providing provision, advice and assistance, but had nowhere to locate themselves. And what was needed at that point in time was a base to work from, but also somewhere where people could just go, physically go to meet other women and gain that support. They came to us on the GLC. I was deputy leader under Ken Livingstone. We had a policy of supporting the establishment within every community of a women's centre, and this is one of the first. And over the years, it's provided a fundamental service to women in our area, women and families in our area. So constituents of mine who have particular problems, I can refer them to the women's centre. They'll come here, they'll gain support, they'll gain advice and assistance, but most probably more importantly, they'll gain a range of contacts and friends that will support them, but in addition to that, they'll gain confidence themselves. And the interesting thing about this centre is how it's translated people who've come to the centre for assistance into volunteers who will then provide assistance and support. It's self-generating in terms of building a local community of women engaged, committed and supporting one another.
Okay, thank you very much. Based on what you just said, then how important do you think this centre is?
Critical to the local community. One of the key aspects of our local community in terms of support services for women and families. Absolutely vitally important on dealing with individual casework, but also engaging with wider policy decisions. Over the last 25 years, a lot of the issues that have come up in terms of development of policy in this area, the Women's Centre have fed into. And so it's not just in dealing with individuals, it's creating a community locally and policies by the local council or government or other decision makers like the Primary Care Trust, so that they address women's issues within the area. So it's absolutely fundamental.
Okay,
I'm the Member of Parliament for Ruislip, Northwood and Pinner.
okay, thank you very much. And could you tell me what you're doing here today?
Well, I came here because I was invited by this centre as one of the local MPs to hear a presentation about what the centre does and why it's so valued by women in this community, and specifically because they have a big funding challenge and are worried about their future.
Could you just summarise quickly what it is that you've learnt about the centre and what it is that they do?
Well, the moment when you really learn is when you hear from the people who've been helped. And what we heard was some incredibly powerful stories of women who obviously came through this door feeling at a very low point in their lives with very low levels of confidence, and this place has just built them up and given them confidence to go on and build their life. And those stories were very powerful indeed.
So based on what you heard from these local women, how important would you say the centre is to our local community?
Well, the centre is clearly very important. It's like lots of, voluntary-led community organisations really struggling to keep going, but it's really important that they do, because they are a lifeline. We heard someone describe this as the net below the net, to catch people as they fall through, and unfortunately as an MP I know that many do. So it is a hugely important resource and makes such a difference to people's lives, and clearly there's a huge amount of love for it here.
Would you encourage sponsors and fundraisers to get involved?
Yeah, no, I'm going to actively do what I can to work with the other MPs, John Randall and John McDonnell, to see what we can do to sort of galvanise local support and support from outside the community to try and keep it going. It's been here for 24 odd years, and I'd like to play what part I can in making sure that it's here for at least another 25 years.
Thank you. Thank you very much for
All right.
coming.
The value, you can't put a price on the value, importance of what this women's centre is to the community. Not just to the community, not just to this women's centre in the community, but the wider community and beyond. There's a kind of a rolling effect of what happens when a woman comes into the centre can affect a lot of things from outside.
Yeah.
That's why it's so important, and that's what basically I'll be talking about in my speech.
Good. Is there anything that you'd want to say to potential fundraisers or sponsors out there?
Yes, get your purse out, because if we go, you're not only going to lose a valuable service, but there are going to be a lot more casualties out there, not just the woman herself, but anyone that woman is involved with. So to say to them, yes, get your purse out, we're a value for money, and if we go, well, I wouldn't like to think what would happen. Not just because, it's not just a service, this centre represents a way of life. It's my way of life. And it's not just about what would happen to me personally and women that, are very committed to this centre, but the whole of society, basically.
Is there anything that you'd like to say to potential fundraisers or sponsors out there?
It's not easy to explain on paper what we actually do. So I would just like to tell you that the work we do here is very worthwhile. As you can see, it's very complicated and in-depth one-to-one work, which can take all day. So we are an organisation that's very worthwhile.
I think it's definitely a worthwhile cause. Come around, look around and see what we do, how we help women, and you definitely be impressed with everything that goes on here.
Yeah. We've all got a mum, a sister and an aunt, a wife, that over the time I expect would come across issues that the Women's Centre could help in, if it's domestic violence, legal advice, general support. The centre is here, and we've all got one of them people in our lives, and if it wasn't for this place, I don't think they would have anywhere to be able to go, or a resource to be able to go to let off a bit of steam. Have a bit of a moan if we wanted to, and not be judged for that. So that's the importance of this place.